Okay, so you're thinking about, well, investing in this Niva Bupa IPO.
Sounds exciting.
And like a good investor, you sent over a ton of research,
Yeah.
excerpts from their draft red herring prospectus, even the full red herring prospectus, the whole thing. You really weren't kidding about wanting to deep dive into this.
That's commitment.
But who really has time to read through all that?
I mean, I do, but not everyone.
And that's where we come in. Today, we're putting on our detective hats, going full-on financial detective
Love it.
to figure out once and for all if this Niva Bupa IPO is really worth your hard-earned money.
Now, what really stands out is Niva Bupa's not just dipping their toes in the stock market. Their growth has been explosive, way faster than the rest of the industry.
Oh, yeah.
So we need to understand just what's driving this rocket ship and if it can keep up this pace,
Okay, so let's start with the who's who of this whole thing.
All right.
We've got Niva Bupa Health Insurance, the big name, going public.
Right.
But they're not going at it alone. They're also the selling shareholders.
Oh.
You think of them like early investors who are, well, cashing in some of their chips.
Makes sense.
We're talking some big names like Federal-Tone LLP, Bupa Singapore Holdings.
I've heard of them.
Even SBI Life Insurance is getting in on the action.
Wow, so it's a pretty big deal.
And let's not forget about the masterminds behind the whole thing.
The puppet masters.
Yeah. I'm talking about the book-running lead managers.
Ah, right, the ones setting the price, getting everyone excited about this IPO and making sure everything goes without a hitch.
Exactly, kind of like the stage managers for this big debut.
I like that analogy.
Now, this IPO has two main parts.
Okay.
We've got the fresh issue, which is where Niva Bupa creates and sells brand new shares to, raise some capital.
That's typical for an IPO.
Right. And then there's the offer for sale, where those early investors, remember the ones cashing in, offer up some of their existing shares.
Right.
But there's one more thing. They're also doing something called a pre-IPO placement, which is kind of a sneak peek for the VIPs, where they sell a chunk of shares before the IPO.
Most likely to, like, big institutions and stuff.
Exactly.
Now, this is where it gets interesting for a lot of people.
I mean the financials.
Bingo. Their revenue, measured by something called gross written premium, has been skyrocketing. I'm talking a CGR of 41.27% from fiscal year 22 to 24.
41%.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. The industry average is like practically standing still compared to that.
Okay, I'm paying attention now. But are they actually making money? Like, is this just growth for the sake of growth or what?
Good question. They're not just a one-trick pony. Their profitability is looking pretty solid, too.
Oh, yeah.
You can see this when you look at their combined ratio.
Remind me what that is again?
Sure. Basically, this tells you how much they spend on claims and all their operating costs for every, let's say, every rupee they make in premiums. Lower is better, obviously.
Right.
And Niva Bupa's has been consistently improving, which shows they're getting more efficient as they grow.
Okay, but I do remember in their draft red herring prospectus, they talk about this in calculating their unearned premium reserve at 50% of the net premium for the last 12 months. I don't know if I understand all that, but I think it means they're estimating their future claims pretty conservatively, right?
Yeah, it's like they're setting aside a rainy day fund. But even with this conservative approach, their financials still look pretty good.
I like the sound of that. So what's their secret sauce?
Well, a big part of their success is they're connected to the international healthcare giant, the Bupa Group.
Never heard of them.
Oh, these guys are huge. They have over 50 million customers worldwide. Global powerhouse.
Wow, 50 million.
Yeah.
But how does that help Niva Bupa on, like, a day-to-day basis?
Well, think about it. They get instant brand recognition just from that connection, like a name that people trust. And they can use all of Bupa's experience, their best practices from all over the world, even tap into their knowledge for new products or just providing great customer service.
So, like, having a mentor who knows the ropes.
Exactly. But they're not just relying on Bupa. They've got their own secret weapon.
Oh, it's that.
Technology. These guys are really embracing the digital-first approach, going all in on tech in a way you rarely see in the Indian insurance world.
You're saying they're like the tech-savvy insurance company.
Pretty much. Get this. Almost all of their new policies, like 99.95%, are done completely digitally. Over 80% of claims are submitted online, and over 85% of renewals happen automatically. They've even got their own mobile app that a lot of their customers use.
Wow, that's impressive. They've basically streamlined the entire process for customers and brought it into, like, the 21st century.
Right. And they're using some pretty advanced tech behind the scenes, too, things like AI and machine learning to detect fraud and process claims more efficiently.
So it's not all just a shiny app. They're using technology to make things better in a lot of ways.
Exactly. Okay, we've talked about the who's who, the money, the Bupa connection, and all their tech.
Right.
But what about the things that make Niva Bupa unique? Those little details.
Fill me in.
Well, for one, they were the first insurer in India to launch this campaign, promising 30-minute cashless claim processing. Pretty bold move, if you ask me.
Yeah, I like that. What else?
And to grow without needing a physical branch everywhere, they came up with this really interesting e-agency model where they can recruit and train agents online.
So even people in smaller towns and cities can get involved.
Exactly. And remember how we talked about them being all about digital? They even use, get this, a machine learning model to predict when customers will renew their policies.
That's pretty cool. It's like they're always one step ahead.
Right.
Okay, so Niva Bupa is clearly on the move. They're going places. But what are their plans for the future? Where are they headed?
They've got big plans, let me tell you. They want to grow even more in the areas they're already in, plus enter some new ones, particularly these Tier 2 plus cities with like under 2 million people.
Ah, so they're going after the next billion customers.
That's the idea. And to reach them, they'll need to expand their partnerships with banks, corporate agents, online platforms, basically cast a wide net to make sure everyone has access to their products.
It's like they're building an ecosystem, a network to reach everyone.
Exactly. But even with all this growth, there are still risks, right? No investment is a sure thing.
True, true. So what are some things that could go wrong for them?
Well, one big challenge is they're in a really competitive market. There are tons of insurance companies out there, both public and private, all fighting for the same customers.
Yeah, the Indian health insurance market is no joke.
You got it. And then there's the whole technology thing. It's a strength, but also a weakness.
How so?
Because they rely so much on technology, they're also more vulnerable to things like cyber attacks and system failures.
Oh, right, that makes sense.
I mean, they even mentioned in their prospectus that they've already had to deal with a few attempts.
A bit scary. Are they doing enough to protect themselves?
They say they have strong security measures in place, including things like using AI to detect fraud, but cybercriminals are always finding new ways to attack. It's a constant battle.
Like a digital arms race, huh?
Exactly. And then there are the usual market risks, interest rates going up and down, which could affect their investments. And then there's always the chance that the government could change the rules for the insurance industry.
Right. Those external factors can be a wild card.
For sure. Plus, you never know when an investigation or audit might pop up and throw a wrench in things.
Sounds like they've got a lot to juggle.
Absolutely. So, to sum it all up, Niva Bupa has a lot going for it.
Yep, numbers look good.
But they're also operating in a really dynamic and challenging environment where things can change quickly.
Sounds like a classic high-risk, high-reward scenario.
Exactly. And that's why it's important to not just focus on the financials in the market, but also to understand the people leading the company. Because at the end of the day, they're the ones making the decisions.
Right. I'm actually really curious to learn more about who's at the helm of this whole operation.
Well, we'll have to save that for next time.
That's good.
Because next time we're going to dive deep into Niva Bupa's leadership team and their board of directors. We'll explore their backgrounds, their experience, and the key roles they play in shaping the company's future.
It's like we're about to meet the wizards behind the curtain.
You could say that. So make sure to join us again as we continue our deep dive into Niva Bupa.
All right. See you then.
See ya.
Okay, so let's dive back into these financials.
Right.
Those numbers everyone wants to understand.
Right.
Before we touched on the combined ratio.
Yeah.
But I think we need to break that down a little more.
It's a really important way to see how profitable an insurance company is, especially when it comes to underwriting.
Right, right.
Think about it like this. For every, let's say, rupee that Niva Bupa makes from premiums, the combined ratio tells us how much of that rupee they're spending on claims and just running the business.
Right. Okay, so lower is better?
Exactly.
So if the combined ratio is 100%, does that mean they're basically breaking even?
Yeah, basically. Anything above 100% and they're actually losing money on their core business.
Got it.
So Niva Bupa's combined ratio in fiscal year 2024 came in at 98.76%. Pretty close to that break-even point.
Okay, so I'm seeing a little bit of a yellow flag here, but I bet you're going to tell me there's more to the story.
You know me too well. Context is everything here.
Okay, lay it on me.
The Indian health insurance market, it's known for having, well, a lot of claims.
Lots of people getting sick, basically.
Yeah, and healthcare costs keep rising. People are using more medical services. It all adds up to, insurers having to pay out more in claims.
So even a combined ratio, just under 100% could actually be pretty good.
You're catching on. And what's even better is Niva Bupa has been steadily improving their combined ratio over the past few years.
Oh, really?
It was 97.13% in fiscal 23 and 107.41% back in fiscal 22.
So they're moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm looking at the numbers and I see their combined ratio actually went up a little bit in the 3 months ending June 30th, 2024. It was like 100.33%.
Yeah.
What's that about?
Well, there could be a few reasons.
Like what?
It could be seasonal, more people getting sick at certain times of year.
Yeah.
Or maybe they just had a few unusually large claims that hit their books. It's just a snapshot, so we need more time to see if it's a trend or just a blip.
So one quarter doesn't always tell the full story.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so combined ratio gives us an idea of their overall profitability.
Right.
But what about their claims ratio? How are they doing when it comes to actually managing all those claims?
Well, the claims ratio tells us how much of their premium income they're actually paying out in claims.
So like a lower number here is also a good thing, right?
Generally, yes. And Niva Bupa's claims ratio has been going down, which is a good sign. It was down to 59.02% in fiscal year 2024 compared to 62.12% back in 22.
So they're paying out less in claims, which means they're managing risk better and keeping costs down, right?
It usually means that, but there's also a flip side to this.
How so?
If the claims ratio is really low, it could be a red flag.
Wait, really? Why?
Because it might mean they're being too strict with approving claims.
Oh, I see.
Like maybe they're denying legitimate claims just to keep that ratio looking good,
So it's a balancing act. They need to be efficient, but also fair.
Exactly.
And investors need to watch that claims ratio carefully.
For sure. Now, another important thing to look at is their assets under management, or AUM.
What is that exactly?
Well, it's basically the total value of all the assets they manage.
So like their financial muscle.
You got it.
Yeah.
And Niva Bupa's AUM has been growing like crazy.
Give me some numbers.
Between March 2022 and March 2024, it increased by, get this, 2.27 times.
Wow, that's huge. Where's all that money going?
As of March 31st, 2024, a big chunk, around 31.86%, was invested in Indian government securities. Pretty safe bet,
Right.
Then another 34.03% went into corporate bonds.
So a mix of safe and maybe a little bit riskier.
Exactly. They're not putting all their eggs in one basket. They've also got some money in other things like additional Tier 1 bonds, equities, some ETFs, even REITs, and mutual funds.
Sounds pretty diversified.
It is. But it's important to remember that how these investments perform is tied to the market, and the market can be unpredictable.
Right. So even with a diversified portfolio, things can still go up or down.
You got it.
Okay, so we've talked to combined ratio, claims ratio, AUM, and how they're managing their assets. But what about those risk factors we talked about earlier?
Yes. Let's get into the nitty-gritty.
Hit me.
Well, for starters, they're in a really competitive market, like tons of players, public and private, all going after those health insurance customers.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Right, and they got to find ways to stand out to win people over.
Not an easy task.
Nope. And then there's that reliance on technology.
Yeah.
It's helped them grow super fast, but it also makes them, vulnerable.
Vulnerable to cyber attacks.
Yep. They even mention in their prospectus that they've had a few close calls already.
That's a bit unsettling.
It is. They say they have strong security, but, hackers are always getting smarter.
It's a never-ending battle.
That's for sure. And then there are the market risks we talked about, like changes in interest rates.
Right. They can hit their bond investments pretty hard.
And we can't forget about the regulatory landscape. The IRDAI, that's India's insurance regulator, they could change the rules anytime.
Oh, right. Like maybe require them to hold more reserves or change how they can price their products.
Exactly. It's a constantly shifting landscape.
Lots of moving parts.
For sure. And then there are those unexpected events, like investigations or audits, things that can pop up and take a lot of management's time and energy.
Right. So what's the bottom line for investors who are, trying to figure all this out?
It's not a simple answer. Niva Bupa has a lot going for it. The The growth is there, the financials are improving, they have that connection to Bupa, they're embracing technology, and they have big plans for the future.
Yeah, lots of positives.
But they're also in a tough industry with lots of competition. They're relying heavily on technology, which has its risks, and the market can always change in unexpected ways.
It's a mixed bag.
Yeah, you could say that. It's like a high-risk, high-reward situation.
I get it. So you're saying investors need to look beyond the numbers and really understand the company and the people running it.
Exactly. And speaking of the people running it, that's what we'll dive into next.
Okay, I'm intrigued. We're going to meet the people calling the shots.
You got it. We're going to take a closer look at Niva Bupa's leadership team and their board of directors, their experience, their backgrounds, and how they're shaping the company's future.
All right, sounds good. Let's meet the masterminds.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we've gone through all the numbers, looked at the market, even talked about what could go wrong.
A lot to consider.
But numbers only tell part of the story, right? Now it's time to meet the people behind it all.
The humans making it happen.
The ones making those big decisions, the ones that'll really determine if this IPO is a success.
Because at the end of the day, it all comes down to leadership.
Exactly. So who's the captain of this ship? Who's steering Niva Bupa through these, interesting times?
At the helm, we've got Krishnan Ramachandran, the managing director and CEO.
Okay, and he's been with Niva Bupa for a while.
Since 2018, so he definitely knows his way around the Indian health insurance world.
So not a newbie, but what about his background? Where'd he come from?
He's actually got over 20 years of experience in insurance and financial services.
Oh, why?
He's held leadership roles at some big names like ICICI Prudential Life Insurance and Aviva India.
So he's got a pretty diverse background.
Definitely, which is probably a good thing considering all the challenges in this market.
I'd imagine so.
Yeah.
What's his leadership style like? Is he a big picture guy, a numbers guy, or a little bit of both?
From what I've read, he's known for being really customer-focused. He's also big on digital innovation.
Makes sense, considering all the tech stuff we talked about.
Exactly. He's been a driving force behind their whole digital transformation.
Yeah, you can definitely see that in how they operate, from onboarding new customers to processing claims to their unique e-agency model.
Right. It seems like his vision is woven into the fabric of the company.
Okay, but he's not running the show alone, right? There's a board of directors, too.
Of course. They provide oversight, make sure everything's on track.
The compass guiding the ship.
Exactly. And Niva Bupa's board is an interesting bunch.
Tell me more.
Well, one of the big names is David Martin Fletcher. He's a non-executive director representing the Bupa Group.
Right, that connection to Bupa is a big deal.
He's been with Bupa for over 15 years, held all sorts of senior positions, so he brings a global perspective and knows the healthcare market inside and out.
So it's like having a direct link to the mothership, so to speak.
You could say that. Then there's Pradeep Pant, an independent director who's been at the top of companies like Indus Towers and Max Financial Services.
Big names.
He brings a deep understanding of the Indian corporate world.
So they've got the global and the local covered.
Exactly. And they've got a few other independent directors, too, which is good for governance.
Yeah, it's always good to have those independent voices.
That's
Make
right.
sure everyone's interests are being considered.
For sure. There have actually been a couple of changes on the board recently.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Dinesh Kumar Mittal, an independent director, resigned back in October for personal reasons.
Okay.
And earlier in the year, in June, they appointed Geeta Dedagol as a new independent director.
Interesting. It seems like even small changes to the board can really shake things up.
Definitely. Every new person brings their own perspective and way of doing things. Investors should always keep an eye on those board-level changes, especially big ones, because they can sometimes mean the company is, like, changing direction.
Right. Makes sense. So to sum it all up, we've got a CEO with a proven track record and a board with a lot of experience and diverse perspectives.
Yeah, they seem well-equipped to deal with, well, whatever comes their way.
But like we said before, there are no guarantees in this game.
Right. The market can change, competitors can adapt, new challenges can pop up.
It all comes down to how well this team can adapt and execute their plans.
And for investors, it's a reminder that it's not just about the numbers, it's about the people behind the numbers.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have. We've gone deep into the financials, analyzed the market, and even met the leadership team.
Hopefully you, our listener, are feeling a lot more informed about Niva Bupa and their IPO.
And remember, this deep dive is just the beginning. There's always more research to do, more to learn.
Exactly. Talk to your financial advisor, read different perspectives. Don't just take our word for it.
That's right. And if there's another company or industry you want us to deep dive into, just send us the info.
We'll be happy to put on our detective hats again.
Until then, happy investing, everyone.
And thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.